The last thing I expected, after 14 months in a war zone I'm still not allowed to name, was to stand on my own porch and hear my 6-year-old ask his father if I was a criminal. "Is Mommy in trouble with the police?" Ethan whispered. "Worse," Daniel said, not even lowering his voice. "She's a deserter." I want you to sit with that word for a second the way I had to. Deserter. Not she was gone. Not she couldn't call. Deserter. The kind of word that gets a soldier court-martialed. The kind of word my husband chose deliberately, standing in the doorway of the house we bought together, in front of the son I hadn't held in over a year, because he needed me to sound like a criminal before I ever got the chance to speak. That's where this story starts. Not with a goodbye at the airfield 14 months earlier, with the homecoming that should have been the best day of my life, and instead became the day I learned my husband had spent over a year rewriting who I was to everyone who mattered. My name is Sarah Whitfield. Major, United States Army. 9 years of marriage, 6 years of motherhood, and exactly one very bad instinct that told me the second my key didn't fit that lock, that I wasn't walking into a homecoming. I was walking into an ambush. Daniel. I kept my voice level the way you keep your voice level when the wrong tone gets people killed. "Open the door. You don't get to just show up," he said through the gap, chain still latched. "Not after what you did." What I did was serve my country on orders I'm not legally allowed to discuss. "What did you do, Daniel?" "Because my key doesn't work, and my son just asked if I'm a criminal." Behind him, my mother-in-law Carol's voice, syrup smooth and merciless. "Let her stand out there a minute. Let her feel what abandonment feels like." Something in me went very cold very fast. Not the cold of fear. The cold of a soldier switching from feeling to function because feeling wasn't going to get my son back, a plan was. "Ethan," I called through the door. "I love you. I never stopped loving you, not for one single day. I'll be back for you. I promise." I heard him start to cry. I heard Carol tell him to hush. And I heard the deadbolt turn, final as a verdict, while I stood outside my own home in the uniform I'd worn to protect people just like them. I didn't cry on that porch. I made a list instead, standing in the dark, engine running, hands finally steady. 1. They planned this. Nobody rewrites a marriage this fast without months of practice. 2. Find out what they've already told the court, because they've clearly already been to one. 3. Find out where the money went. 4. Do not let them see you break. Not once. Not even alone. I didn't know it yet, but I was already 2 weeks behind them. They'd filed for emergency custody 9 days earlier, citing abandonment, citing psychological instability from prolonged combat exposure, citing a signed financial document I had never seen in my life. They hadn't been waiting for me to come home. They'd been counting on me not to. I checked into a motel that night and called my sister Renee, and what she told me turned my stomach in a way the war never had. "Sarah, it's worse than you think. Carol didn't just tell people you left. She told the school Ethan might need to see a counselor because his mother is, her words, not emotionally safe to be around right now. She's been building a file on you. For months. A file. Screenshots. Old social media posts from your deployment page, the ones where you talked about firefights taken completely out of context. A photo of you carrying an injured soldier. Captioned like it proves you're desensitized to violence. Sarah, I think this started way before you got home. I think they knew you were coming back on a specific date, and they built a case before you ever walked through that door." I sat on the edge of the motel bed and understood, for the first time, that I wasn't fighting a misunderstanding. I was fighting a campaign, and campaigns need money. I opened my banking app. $312.47. $40,000 gone. Transfers labeled home repairs, loan. And this was the one that made my hands shake for the first time since I'd landed. One for $11,000 labeled, CB, Ethan's future. They hadn't just taken my money. They'd used my son's name to launder the theft. I called Captain Priya Anand Jag before sunrise. "Sarah, listen to me carefully," she said, once I'd laid it out. "This isn't a custody dispute anymore. Forged financial documents, a coordinated smear campaign timed to your return, funds funneled through your child's name. That's not a family falling apart. That's a plan. And plans leave fingerprints. We're going to find every single one. How long until I can see my son? We file for emergency supervised visitation today, on the grounds that you have zero documented history of instability, and a spotless service record. That buys you contact. It doesn't win the war. For that, I need everything: bank records, deployment orders, anything Daniel or Carol have put in writing. And Sarah, I need you to prepare yourself. They may have more than just a paper trail. People this organized don't stop at forgery. She was right. They didn't. 3 days later, at a supervised visit in a family services office that smelled like old carpet and coffee, Ethan looked at me like I was a stranger wearing his mother's face. "Dad says you might not be my mom anymore," he said. "Because of a paper." "What paper, baby?" "Grandma says there's a paper that says maybe I'm not really." He stopped, 6 years old and already flinching from his own sentence. "That maybe you're not my real mom. Because of the army stuff." I felt the room tilt in a way even the porch hadn't managed. This wasn't about custody anymore. They were planting doubt about biology, about whether I had any legal claim to my own child at all. A lie so cruel and so specific it could only have been engineered to destroy me from the inside before we ever reached a courtroom. "Ethan, look at me." I knelt down so we were eye to eye. "I carried you. I was there the second you were born. I have never once in my entire life doubted that you are mine. Whatever paper they're talking about is a lie, and I am going to prove it, because you deserve the truth, not their story." He studied me the way kids study adults when they're deciding who's finally telling them something real. "Okay," he whispered. "I believe you." 6 years old, and he was already braver than the 2 adults who tried to use him as a weapon. The forged paternity concern document, it turned out, wasn't a legal filing at all. It was a fabricated letter on stationery meant to resemble a military family services office, something Carol had mocked up herself and shown Ethan's school counselor to justify pulling him from a scheduled meeting with me. It wasn't just fraud against a bank anymore. It was fraud against a child's understanding of his own mother. Captain Anand went white with fury reading it. "This changes everything, Sarah. This isn't just custody fraud and financial fraud. Impersonating an official document, using it to manipulate a minor's psychological state, that's a separate criminal referral, and I am going to make sure the DA's office sees every page." We spent the next 2 weeks building the case brick by brick. A forensic document examiner confirmed the power of attorney's signature was forged. The loop on the S never matched mine, not once in 9 years of marriage. Bank records confirmed the funds ended up furnishing an apartment for Daniel and a woman named Kristen, who I learned had been in the picture since month 4 of my deployment, for months after I left, 10 months before I came home, an entire secret life built in the space my absence had made. And buried in an email thread Carol had forgotten to delete from a shared family calendar account. A message to Daniel, dated 6 weeks before my return flight was even scheduled. "We need everything in place before she lands. Once the school and the account are locked down, there's nothing she can do that looks good." They hadn't reacted to my homecoming. They'd engineered it. The hearing was moved up, given the severity of what we'd found. I sat at the plaintiff's table in my class, a uniform, spine straight, hands folded, and across the room Daniel wouldn't look at me, and Carol looked at me like I was the one on trial for something. Daniel's lawyer opened with the abandonment narrative, same as before, the missing calls, the silent year, the instability of a mother who chooses combat over her child. I let it wash over me. I'd survived worse rooms than this one. Then Captain Anand stood, and this time she didn't just present evidence. She dismantled a plan. "Your Honor, the respondent and his mother would have this court believe my client abandoned her family. What the evidence actually shows is a coordinated fraud scheme, initiated months before my client's return, designed specifically to seize her assets, poison her relationship with her son, and secure custody before she ever set foot back in this country." She laid it out piece by piece. The forged power of attorney, the fabricated school document, the funds funneled through a fictitious Ethan's future account label, the email timestamped 6 weeks before my flight home. The courtroom went very still, the particular stillness of people realizing they're watching something worse than they expected. "Objection," Daniel's lawyer said weakly. "Speculative." "Your Honor," Captain Anand said, "I have the document examiner's certified report, the bank's fraud investigation summary, and a dated email in the respondent's mother's own words. This isn't speculation. This is a timeline." And that was when the courtroom doors opened, and every uniformed nerve in my body came to attention before my mind caught up. Major General Thomas Whitmore walked in, 3 stars gleaming, and the temperature of the room changed the way it does when the most dangerous person present is also the calmest one. "Your Honor, forgive the interruption," he said. "I understand allegations have been made about Major Whitfield's fitness as a mother, predicated on her combat service. I request permission to address the court." The judge, startled into silence, nodded. General Whitmore didn't look at me. He looked at Daniel, and Daniel, who had called me a deserter on our own porch in front of our son, with our son's own doubt in his voice, went absolutely, completely still, like a man watching the last solid ground under his feet dissolve. "Major Whitfield spent 14 months on a classified operation I personally ordered," the general said. "Communication was prohibited for the safety of her team and the mission. She led that team through conditions I am not at liberty to describe in this courtroom, and she brought every single one of them home alive. I have read the claims made against her today. I want the record to reflect this clearly. There is no version of Major Whitfield's service record that supports the word deserter. There is only a version of it that supports the word hero, and I would remind this court that questioning a service member's fitness as a parent on the basis of their combat record, absent any evaluation, absent any incident, built instead on forged documents and a fabricated letter shown to a 6-year-old child, is not a custody dispute. It's an attack on every deployed parent in this country who trusted that their service would be honored, not weaponized against them." Silence. Complete, total silence. The judge turned to Daniel. "Mr. Whitfield, do you have anything to say before I rule?" Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Beside him, Carol had gone the color of paper, staring at the table like it might open up and swallow her. "Then let the record show," the judge said, "that this court finds no credible evidence of abandonment, instability, or any grounds whatsoever for the claims brought against Major Whitfield. Full custody of Ethan Whitfield is restored to his mother, effective immediately. I am referring the forged financial documents and the fabricated school letter to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Investigation, and I am ordering a full financial accounting of the misappropriated funds, to be repaid to Major Whitfield with interest. Mr. Whitfield's visitation will be supervised, pending the outcome of that investigation." Carol made a sound I won't forget, something breaking finally after months of building something out of lies. I didn't turn around to watch it happen. I'd spent 14 months learning not to look back at things that were already behind me. I picked Ethan up an hour later, and this time I didn't have to call his name twice. He ran the second he saw me, full speed, the way kids run when nobody's told them yet that the world sometimes takes its time giving people back to each other. I caught him and held on, and for the first time since that porch, I let myself feel every single one of the 14 months at once, all the fear, all the silence, all the nights I didn't know if I'd survive the mission, let alone the homecoming. "You came back," he said into my shoulder. "I told you I would. Grandma said the paper meant you weren't really. The paper was a lie, baby. It was never real. You are mine. You have always been mine. Nothing anyone writes on a piece of paper is ever going to change that." He pulled back, searching my face with the seriousness only a 6-year-old carries, the seriousness of someone deciding finally who to trust with the rest of his life. "Okay," he said. "I believe you. For real this time." "For real," I said. "Forever." It's been 6 months. Carol is under indictment for fraud, and for the fabricated document used against a minor. Daniel's visitation remains supervised while the investigation runs its course, and the money, every dollar of it, plus interest, has been returned. I moved into a small house near base, and I fixed the porch light myself the first weekend, because I never want to stand outside a locked door in the dark again without being able to see clearly. Last week Ethan asked me if the army might send me away again someday. I told him the truth, that duty sometimes calls, that leaving is sometimes part of loving something bigger than yourself, but that leaving and abandoning have never once been the same word, no matter how many times someone tried to convince him otherwise. He thought about it the way he does now, carefully like evidence, and then he said, "Okay, as long as you always come back and tell me the truth. That's the promise I intend to keep for the rest of my life. Not because a judge ordered it, because it's mine to keep. If you've ever had your sacrifice twisted into a weapon against you, if you've ever had to fight to prove that loving your family and serving your country were never in competition, I want you to know the truth always finds its way through a locked door eventually. Tell me in the comments if this one hit you harder than the first version. I read every single one. And if you want more stories where the truth walks in right on time, hit subscribe, because this fight isn't the last one worth telling.